gCalendar is basically a very intense contact relationship or management system for disc jockeys, photographers, videographers, wedding professionals, etc. We've been doing this since 1996. Basically, what we're doing with Google Calendar is something we've been doing for a while. We go into text, or tools, system configuration, we'll zip right down to integrations, and into integrations, we'll go to shared resources. For a long time, we've been using the iCal protocol. Works quite well with Google Calendar. Most of our people still use this, but we switched over to using some newer technology, of which you've seen a video on how this works. What they can configure here is how it's going to look on the Google Calendar. If the event is booked, what color? If it's a tentative event, what color? Default appointment color, and at which point in the event status does it actually appear on Google's calendar. Now they have here their own calendar here, and as we can see, we have two events on the 13th. And if we go to the home page, we'll also see on the 13th there are two events. If we look over the Google Calendar on the 13th, there are two events. Basically all we do is sync one way from Google, from gCalendar to Google Calendar. So if we change this date, say to the 20th, I save and close, it syncs in the background. I'm sorry, we're on very slow internet, so it takes a little while here. You can now see that there's one on the 13th and now one on the 20th. We go to the Google Calendar, you can see that event also moved from the 13th to 20th. Again, it's a sync one way from gCalendar to Google Calendar. We do not need to have access to any of their other events or anything else, just to the gCalendar generated calendar items. So you click on this and it brings in the venue, the guests, the organizer, and a link back to their event on gCalendar. So that's basically how that works in there. If you need additional, continue watching this video and I'll show you on the back end what we do coding wise in order to accomplish this. So if that's all you need right now, you can go ahead and stop and approve us. If not, go ahead and continue the video and I will show you the back end. On the back end, when an event is saved, it opens up an agent, and that agent eventually calls the save event. And the save event does a bunch of things. It does some fixed dates, converts things to some Julian values, sets some other dates that are important throughout the other system. If there's to-dos, etc., I'm not going to bore you through all this. And then if we're saving only, we're then going to head and calling CalSync. And CalSync is real simple. It goes through, it determines whether or not it needs to be synced. So it looks for that refresh token, which we do save. If that refresh token doesn't exist, it completely stops at this point. No sense in going forward. We figure out whether we need to patch it or etc. And then at the very bottom, we call the API sync event. And I've got a message box on my server so I can test this through it's going through. So it calls API.sync event. And our API, the Google API is a object. And the object, basically, with any object, you create it, defines a few things. But basically, first of all, it goes to sync event. And so it's sending in that doc ID and it's looking to see, is it an event? And what I mean by that is event is it actually goes through, it checks the events, it determines to see if the ID that's from the Google event matches the ID in gCalendar. If so, it says is event is true, which means we're going to patch it. Is event is false means we're going to create it. So in this particular case it was, and so we'll go back to the sync event and we take a look at that. And so if it is an event, we're going to patch it, otherwise we're going to insert it. And so if we go to patch event right here, we pull the calendar information, we pull that particular your item, we add the necessary credentials, we then pull that data in, we create the JSON, and we then do an API.patch. Literally, that's about all we do. It's very important that these guys get their events into Google Calendar so that they can put them on their phones or anywhere else like this, but we do not have any need to patch, modify, or do anything else to existing calendar entries that may have been created elsewhere. And so the scope, all we really need is basically what you may want to call an author scope. Let me go in and let me create an event, and let me go ahead then and be the editor of that event, but not allowed. I don't need access to edit any other events. So it's very simple. Events and appointments in Gig Builder, you do a one-way push over to Google Calendar, and they're either created or patched. That's what we have. Thank you.